Here's something we could all do together during lockdown. Cancel chlamydia. Yeah. Get on top of your sexual health during quarantine with my sponsor, Let's Get Checked. And let's get rid of this pesky venereal disease. Not only do Man Whore Podcast listeners get 20% off their at-home test kits, 10% of all sales using promo code MANWHORE during the month of May will be donated to the National Network of Abortion Funds. Help us hashtag cancel chlamydia today at letsgetchecked.com and use promo code MANWHORE. Again, that's promo code MANWHORE at letsgetchecked.com. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by HotMovies.com. Try out some ethical, paid-for porn for free with none of those hidden fees or secret subscriptions when you sign up at HotMovies.com and use the promo code MANWHORE. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
My condolences to all of the clits under quarantine out there. I hope you're hanging in with whatever batteries you were able to hoard. This is Billy Procida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. I'm not throwing out any sorrows for the unopened penises of America because, as we heard in the most recent Corona cast, they're not behaving themselves too well. Come on now, be better than that. What's up, everybody? Welcome to my podcast. This week on the show, I've got on academic, researcher, and author of the hit book Vibrator Nation, Lynn Camella. Very excited to share it with y'all because Vibrator Nation, I've been hearing about this book all the time. It's always like in my different feeds on social media. Heard about it from a lot of friends. I was embarrassed I haven't even read it yet. So shame on me. I'm working on it. It's in the queue, I swear. But Lynn was a great guest. Before we get to Lynn, though, I am thrilled that so many of y'all have been enjoying the Corona cast episodes with my darling baby girl, Megan. Megan's been enjoying, hearing from y'all on the Instagram. She's enjoyed the positive feedback. She's enjoyed finding her podcast in sea legs. Thanks for letting her do that with y'all. I also happen to know that almost all of you are in love with a frequent friend of the show, Andrea Allen, right? Oh my gosh, she's hilarious. And I also happen to know that Fan Whore Nation has a lot of overlap with the Army of Cunts. Yes, I know that Emily, Andrea, and I share a lot of listeners. And that's why I wanted to tell y'all that today, those two gals have dropped a new episode of the Hot Mess Comedy Hour with guests Billy Procida and Megan Ixum. Oh boy, oh wow. Me and my lady were talking on their show about polyamory, body positivity, and we also answered a question that was surprisingly heated. We did not all agree on that one. So when you're done with this episode right now, go check out the latest Hot Mess Comedy Hour. Yeah. Hey folks, we're fundraising over here at the Man Whore Podcast. Did you know that? We are raising money for the National Network of Abortion Funds. It's the National Network of Abortion Funds is a great organization. They help women overcome the logistical and financial hurdles in obtaining an abortion, especially in parts of the country where a certain political party has been making it increasingly more difficult, especially right now during COVID-19. There are some places that are trying to claim that an abortion isn't an essential procedure. So this organization is doing its best to help women get what they need. And I'm really into, helping get money to people who do good things for people. So I've teamed up with the at-home testing service, Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an at-home testing service. Pretty easy to use. I'm waiting to get my kit right now, actually. They send you this kit in the mail. You collect your own samples. You ship it back to them. No extra postage needed. And then you can check your results securely online in your patient portal. Just like you would with when you get tested at the normal doctor's office. Except now you're not going to have to put up with their judgmental faces when you give your sexual history. I'm always sitting in that chair like, was my number of sexual partners too high? Was it too low? Is this not a me problem, but you need to get laid, doctor? What's going on here? So I've arranged with Let's Get Checked for 10% of all sales, not 10% of profits, 10% of all sales using promo code MANWHORE during the month of May will be donated to the National Network of Abortion Funds. So this is a great time to both get on top of your sexual health and raise money for a good cause. All you got to do is go to trylgc.com/manwhore. And hey, if you use promo code MANWHORE, you get 20% off your test. So that's pretty cool too. Again, visit trylgc.com. That's trylgc.com/manwhore. Use promo code manwhore. I would love to send them a nice, big, juicy donation. Before we get to this week's guest, Lynn Camella, I want to introduce you to sex coach Sarah Rose. Sarah and I remotely recorded a bonus episode that will come out tomorrow exclusively for my $5 and up fan whores on Patreon. But I also wanted to let her pop on the main feed for a moment and give y'all some quarantine sex tips. All right, everybody. I'm here with sex coach Sarah Rose. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Billy. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, we just finished recording a wonderful bonus episode talking about your tantric activation sex coaching practice. And, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people a little bit more about what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I primarily work with men, although I do some private coaching with women also. But I have a couple of programs. One's called Sex Stallion Training. The other's called Man on Fire. And I train guys in tantric sex practices so that way they can become sexual masters.
One of those titles, it's fun because one of those things I really sounds cool and I want to take, and the other one sounds terrifying. Just to be real, I'm just like fire. Okay, but what is we talked about this in the bonus episode, but why don't you tell everybody who's listening, how would you define Tantra? As I've said before, my introduction to Tantra was happy ending massage chicks who wanted to charge an extra $200. I understand that may not be entirely what that practice is about.
Yeah, well, I think just to note, I think Man on Fire is meant to terrify people.
Oh, well, then mission accomplished, lady.
It's like, know what the fuck you're getting yourself into. Oh man, no, it's actually like becoming the hottest group of guys ever. Like I have women that are just dying to know what guys are in that group. They're like, who's in there? What, where do they live? Are they single? I get hit up to start like a dating site on my website all the time with the guys that are in Man on Fire. But back to your question, Tantra is definitely some people have kind of hijacked it, the term, and made a happy ending massage into Tantra, which is, in my opinion, not Tantra. But tantric sex is when you're able to use your breath, your sound, the movement of your body, the way you're focusing, the intention that you have to make the sensations of sex expand. So they can become a lot more intense, a lot more pleasurable. And it's having full body orgasms. It's having orgasms in different parts of your body, being for men orgasming without ejaculation. So that way you can have multiple orgasms and not, ejaculate. At some point for most men, it becomes difficult to orgasm again after ejaculation. So with being able to orgasm without ejaculating, you can have that amazing, intense pleasure of orgasm and keep going instead of just having to delay your orgasm until the end when you're done having sex.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about breathing and all that wonderful stuff in the bonus show. But something I wanted you to share with my listeners is, look, we're all stuck at home. We're not supposed to be out finger fucking people on Tinder yet. So what a lot of us are getting very sexually frustrated, pent up over here. And I saw on your website you put out some quarantine sex tips. I thought maybe you could share a few of those with us.
Yeah, so right now, I'm actually getting a lot of attention in the business because guys are like, all right, well, I finally have some time to focus on being better in bed. And because everything that I do is, or at least unless I'm working with couples, like when I'm working with just men or just women, it's done through masturbation practices. So it's actually the perfect time when you're, pent up in more ways than one to learn how to do these practices. You got time, you're stuck at home. So learning, doing the tantric practices, but then, even beyond that, like if you're meeting people online, you can start to do different communication exercises that create deeper intimacy and deeper connection. So that way, if you're interested in building a relationship, you can, set a good foundation during this time when you can't even see the person, face to face, can't be having physical sex. You can start even with your phone sex or your virtual sex. It can be better. Like it can feel better if you have more just more connection with that person.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what's something like I can be doing right now from home to, be having a more fun sex life at home?
On your own?
Yeah, I would say let's go with the at home. I know there's a lot of lonely fan whores out there. Even if they have partners, they're just not there with them.
Yeah, and even if they are there with them, I was talking to a friend the other night, and his girlfriend had gotten stuck with him in LA
Stuck with him. She must not like him very much.
Well, she lives on the other side of the world, and she had been in LA visiting, and then wasn't able to get back home, and so they were together longer than expected. And
Mm.
I mean, he loves her, and he says they have great sex, but at some point he was just like, all right, meatloaf again, like every night the same thing. And so people are bored even if they're having sex with their partner during this time. So ways to spice it up are really important. And again, so there's a communication exercise that I like for couples to do. It's called desires, fears, and love. And you start out with one partner asking the other, what are your deepest desires? And letting that person just express for 2 minutes. You can set a timer what their deepest desires are. And if they come to a natural pause, just give them the prompt again. What are your deepest desires? And then after the 2 minutes, switch, and the other person, asks who the person that was just originally asking the question. And then moving on from there into what are your deepest fears? Same process. And then what do you love about me will be the last question. And this is something that you can do even if you're separated by distance from your partner, and you're just, wanting to still connect with them in a way that's like beyond just the basic chit chat and like, hey, how was your day? That type of thing, to like really start to get in there deeper. And this really helps couples, especially during times of crisis. Like we need to get back to the foundations. And if there are cracks in the relationship, they're definitely going to show when there's excess stress like there is right now. So what happens when you really look at and express your fears, then they start to have less power over you, because often we get them in our head. We really build them up. They have so much power and control. We're so afraid of things. We're afraid of speaking out or doing things or saying what we want. And when you start to actually talk them out loud, you kind of are able to see them better for what they really are, and not as how big and built up they were inside your head. So it can help release some of those fears.
I'm scared. Is the couple like naked when they're playing this game? Because for me, I feel like we get to the fears part and it would be cathartic, but I feel like I'd be like just crying.
So no, you don't have to be naked during this part.
Okay. Because like as much as like I love crying and I do love being naked, not the biggest fan of putting them together.
So what about crygasms? Like, haven't you had a good crygasm?
I don't think I've had a crygasm. No, I've been with women who've had crygasms. Not often, but like it's happened a few times.
Yeah, that's definitely something that guys are less a fan of, especially like when they're with a woman. Maybe when they're on their own, but maybe not so much when they're with a woman. I get that.
Do you have any like mutual masturbation games or tips? Because like I think mutual masturbation very underrated. Did it yesterday with my girlfriend after we recorded a podcast together. It was a blasty, but I think some people can feel like they don't know how to start it because they haven't done it before. So it just feels like, do I just start? And you know, what are some ways like maybe couples who are quarantined together could get more comfortable masturbating together?
Yeah, so even starting with eye gazing. So if you sit across from your partner, left eye to left eye, like looking, and again, you can do like 2 minutes and just synchronizing your breath. And then from that space, start masturbating. So that way you're already connected and your breath is connected. And then you can start masturbating and just like be in sync with each other from there.
Yeah. And I want to toss in there, hey, everybody, it's okay if you giggle a little bit together. That's fine, too. Because remember, sex is fun.
Yeah, it definitely should be something that you're enjoying. Laughing is a good thing.
Yeah, and you have a whole list of these quarantine sex tips that people can find on your website. So where can people go find you if they want to maybe hire you as a sex coach or just learn more about your practice?
Tantricactivation.com is my website, and Tantric Activation on Instagram as well.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. I'm going to take a look at the whole man on fire thing and because I'm going to say that fear out loud and then I'm just going to be less scared of it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take deep breaths in the process. People, tantricactivation.com. If you want to hear more of Sarah and I, tomorrow her bonus episode will be up on Patreon for all of my $5 and up members. But Sarah, thank you again. And why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody one last time.
Yeah, bye. Thanks for having me.
Hey, did you know you could join our super secret Facebook group, The Champagne Room, for just $2? Something I've loved engaging in during this quarantine, something that's honestly helped keep me sane, is engaging with my various Patreon member communities. Between the Champagne Room, the Peep Show, and our new monthly Man Whore Munch on Zoom, there are a bunch of ways to connect with people who feel and think and fuck just like you. You might think you're the only kinky queer weirdo out in Oklahoma, but I promise you there are more like you. You just don't know it, and some of those people are going to be in the group with you. And I also like to thank the members of my fan whore community with a little shout out during the fan whore appreciation moment. Okay. This is the part of the podcast I like to give some shout outs. Right now, I want to say thank you to James Forrest, who is, in Charlottesville. I really hope there are no tiki torches in your garage. You seem like a very nice gentleman. No one's trying to replace you, I promise. I want to say thank you to Gerardo. The patron's so nice, he pledged twice. He made 2 different accounts because he wanted to help us try to hit 600 patrons by the 6-year anniversary. What a sweetheart. Thank you, buddy. A shout out to Danka. I hope Germany is starting to, become a safer place to be, buddy. Thanks for being a good fan. And a thank you to Daniel Escoto. Man, there's 2 things I've been learning about Daniel after going through his Facebook. I creep a little bit. This man loves 2 things. His beautiful little girl, his beautiful daughter, and Pennywise the Clown. Very, quite the juxtaposition of love interests. But thank you, buddy, for loving me too. Join up right now at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. And now for this week's guest, Lynn Camella. Oh, let me tell you, I wish I just shut the fuck up more on this one. I was kind of warned in like an excited way. I was warned that like Lynn can talk. I was told I could probably just hit record and just let her go. And honestly, that's what I should have done. There's something about being a comic. Like you can be crushing in a room, but if someone right in the front row isn't laughing, that becomes the only person who matters in your head. And for some reason, I needed to make Lynn laugh. And I found that very difficult to do, especially in the beginning. I recorded with Lynn like right before I started doing like 2-track recording. And the benefit of that is that sometimes depending on the situation, I can like mute myself. Most of the thing, like I don't do a lot of editing on the podcast for these interviews, but like when I do, most of the time it's just me taking myself out because I'm not adding anything to the conversation. I'm just interrupting because like I need attention. Yeah, I just don't think she was very amused by me, and I can live with that because we got a really fantastic, full of information episode here. If you are curious about sex toy shops and vibrators and like ethnographic research, this is the episode for you. Not a lot of gangbangs in this interview, but we don't need them. Lynn does swimmingly by her own damn self. Let's go learn more about vibrators with Lynn Camella. If the last few months have shown us anything, it's that when America is stuck at home, we will watch a shit ton of porn. A lot of articles and studies came out over the last few months just showing the spike in porn viewership. Folks, we got to hashtag pay for our porn. And one of the most convenient and affordable ways you can do that is over at hotmovies.com. Hotmovies.com is a longtime sponsor of the Man Whore podcast. I've been working with them a long time, and it's because I love their site. I love what they do. It's a pay-per-minute porn site. They've licensed movies from all the different categories, from all your favorite studios, from all of your favorite performers. You buy a bunch of minutes and you use those minutes how you want to. Instead of having to manage 3, 4, maybe even 5 different subscriptions to various porn sites, you can get a whole bunch of that at hotmovies.com. You get 20 bonus minutes on top of any order you make when you use promo code MANWHORE at checkout. Again, go to hotmovies.com, use promo code MANWHORE, hashtag pay for some of your porn. And now let's get to the show.
I mean, I think it depends on, like, what are your goals and what kind of research you want to do. So, for example, some people study sexuality and they don't want to be researchers and they don't want a tenure track university position. They want to study sexuality because they want to be a sexual therapist, or, you know, maybe they already have a master's degree in social work, but they want a focused sexuality component so they can say to people, I have these certifications in, you know, marriage and family counseling and a master's degree from Widener. So that's one path you can take. I mean, my path, and I know a lot of people who've done this. I mean, I have an undergraduate degree in psychology. I minored in women's studies and anthropology, a master's degree in gender studies and feminist theory.
But then where did you learn?
A PhD in communication. So
I was going to interject, just like, where'd you get the PhD in just like fabulous fashion?
Oh, fabulous
I also
fashion.
like just noticed the ring too. I was like,
thanks. Thank you for saying I have fabulous fashion. I think I just kind of, you know, chose the right outfit today. So, and I was in Australia, a couple of years ago, actually, when I was on book tour for Vibrator Nation. And there was an amazing custom eyewear shop in Melbourne.
These are custom?
And I like went in there and they had the most amazing eyewear I had ever seen. And these just jumped out to me. And it was like the one splurge like I had done in a year. But I went back a couple times. I tried them on. I didn't know if I could make them work because my face is small. They're kind of big, but they had so much personality. I was like, I'm going for it.
Because like you look like the cool professor. You look like the professor kids take like 5 times in 4 years. It's like, no, you gotta take Dr. Camella while you're out here.
You know, thank you for the plug. I hope my students are listening to that. Yeah, I don't know what my reputation is with students other than I'm challenging. Like I have a reputation for being, you know, a challenging, hard professor. I expect a lot. You know, they have to do a lot of work. I have an attendance policy. You know, I you know, really I'm invested in my students, kind of, you know, making the most of college, making the most of my class, making the most of me as a professor. You know, I'm there. I have them for a semester. I want to, you know, kind of see them engage with reading and ideas. And I want to kind of see them improve as, little baby scholars. I want their writing to improve.
Baby
I want them
scholars.
to learn how to do research. So, I think that no one has ever described my classes as easy.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to say that I'm here right now with Dr. Lynn Camello, who author of Vibrator Nation, also author of New Views on Pornography.
Yeah, I co-edited that volume with
that?
a colleague of mine.
I saw the
Parent.
title and I thought like, okay, so what are the new views? I was like, I haven't. The last I heard,
Yeah.
last update I got was it's the devil. And
Oh.
I don't know. I haven't updated my software since then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not quite sure, I think new views, right? It's so broad. It's so like, what does that mean when it comes to pornography? And I think that when I worked with my co-editor to find pieces for that book, we were looking for a couple things. We really wanted it to be very interdisciplinary. So we wanted research from sociologists, political scientists. We have a piece by a philosopher in there, media studies professionals, somebody with a law background. So there's like a lot of disciplinary perspectives and a lot of historical perspectives. There's a handful of pieces by historians. So we wanted it to be interdisciplinary. And we also importantly wanted the book to have not just academic research, but interviews and kind of the perspectives of performers and directors, right? So we could...
Do you have some performer essays in there?
We do. We have a piece by Carol Queen, who's the staff sexologist
She's
at
great.
Good Vibrations. And so Carol wrote a terrific piece for that collection about the history of Good Vibrations' relationship to pornography. Because for a number of years, in the early years of that store, its founder, Joni Blank, didn't carry porn at all.
Yeah.
She personally wasn't into it. She didn't think other, women would be into it. And also part of her mission with Good Vibes was to create a different kind of sex shop.
Right.
And at the time, most sex shops were really known for pornography. So she kind of shied away from that. And it wasn't until Susie Bright came in the 80s and started working there that, she really started to encourage Joni to, kind of carry more diverse products. So in the late 80s, they finally started, their porn, or they called it at the time like erotic video library. And they were carrying pornography, which was emerging, like the kind of nascent porn for women and, porn by lesbians. And so Carol writes this really great history for our book. And then, Shar Rednauer and Jackie Strano. They founded Sir Productions in San Francisco in the late 90s. They're the creators of Bend Over Boyfriend series. If you've ever heard of the Bend Over Boyfriend series.
It sounds like a series that would definitely exist.
So, anyway, so we have pieces by them. And I love those pieces because, Carol talks about, the evolution of Good Vibes as a retail space that also became more friendly to pornography, but also kind of picky about the pornography it carried.
Didn't one of the two, is Susie and Joni or Jody? Right?
Joni Blank.
I've read only like one book about sex toys. Yours is next. I didn't get.
You haven't read it yet.
I didn't get the.
Okay.
I didn't get like a press copy. So
Okay.
Getting through there, but
let me plug my own book. It really is a great book. It is the first book to tell the story of kind of the history of feminist sex toy stores in the United States.
Well, when I was reading the other book, Buzz. This will be, I might beat this just so that I don't accidentally insult Hallie. It was like I would say, I just read this great book on sex toys, and people would say Vibrator Nation.
Oh,
so I was like I haven't read it yet, but like the reputation precedes you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I've gotten just a lot of very positive feedback about the book, about just, the depth of the research that went into it. I worked really hard as a researcher over many years to do many, many interviews and a lot of ethnographic research, about kind of sex toy stores and the history and looking at this alternative model that emerged. And then I spent a lot of time writing it because I wanted to take, a rigorously researched piece of scholarship and write it in a way where anybody could pick it up and not feel intimidated by it, and I was able, fortunately, to draw upon many years of experience writing for popular media outlets. So I kind of had the ability to write in a more kind of journalistic, tone. And I've gotten a lot of really nice feedback from readers saying it was a page turner. I couldn't put it down. I really appreciated
It's
that,
got to be better than this bullshit I just finished reading,
what
which was not, I did not enjoy. It's called Lust in Translation.
Oh.
And I was just like, blah.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that book.
You know what? You can skip it.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
address,
Yeah. But yeah, I think, but anyways, thank you for the kind words about, or just like passing on that you've heard good things about the book. That's
Well,
you work hard for many years on a project and you obviously want people to read it, but you don't want people to kind of read it and feel like, oh my gosh, that was so much work, or oh my gosh, I only finished it because I was halfway through and I kind of forced myself to finish it. And, I haven't gotten that response or that feedback on this book, for this book. And, it's nice when I kind of go places, it's AVN weekend. I've been at AVN for the past several days and, just having people come up to me saying, you're Lynn Camella. It's great to meet you. I loved your book. I read your book. And to have like journalists who write about the industry saying, I read your book. I loved your book. And, you want it to inform journalists. You want it to be a book that, professors will assign their students.
But you don't want it to be just something that's like informative because you want it to be readable. And I think that's so important to like keep that in mind as you're writing.
Absolutely.
We can't all read Sex at Dawn. It's just, too, we can't all have dense book after dense book.
Well, as someone who kind of does a lot of writing, who is a professor, who does research, who does writing, my whole thing is, I want to write in a way that, kind of resembles what I want to read. Like I want to write for people and produce something that I would want to read, and I have a PhD and I don't like reading really theoretically dense stuff because to me, and some people might quibble with this, some of my colleagues, I actually think it is harder to take complicated ideas and make them accessible for a wide audience than it is to throw around fancy jargon. Anybody can throw around fancy jargon. Why don't you take time to like break that complicated idea down so it makes sense to somebody with a PhD and someone who, barely graduated high school, and to me that's worth like, academic writers really taking seriously. Like, who are you trying to impress? Are you trying to impress 2 professors on your tenure committee?
Yeah.
Or are you trying to write, in a way whereby, this history about, feminist sex toy stores and Good Vibrations and Babeland and Smitten Kitten and Sugar and all of these businesses that are part of this wider sex positive network that I write about, are you writing in a way where that history is going to travel, that people are going to like, read that book and then share that book with their best friend and say, I just read this. You got to learn about this history. This could inspire you. It could inspire your sex education career. Or, if you've been thinking about starting, some kind of sex positive business, it could inform, that history is valuable, and I met someone and talked to someone the other day who, is a sex tech entrepreneur and who's in charge of raising like millions and millions of, dollars for, kind of, different startup businesses and, is doing really great work in the kind of sex tech sphere. And she said, your book was one of the books that really, has been valuable to me, has informed my thinking about the work that I do. And there's no higher compliment. I would rather get that type of compliment than, be at a academic conference and have, some, maybe, snobby person with a PhD saying, "Oh, you wrote a book about vibrators? What is that about?" It's like, that's not,
Do you feel like get like some poo-poo-ness on the, like, being an academic who writes about sex, whether from superiors or from colleagues?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Not really, and I'm fortunate, and I'm fortunate in a couple ways. Fortunate in a number of ways. I'm fortunate that that I have a full-time academic position. And I say that I'm fortunate because, academia is more and more like the gig economy. Like there's a lot of precariousness around academic labor. A lot of people who have PhDs can't land those full-time tenure track jobs. And so they're doing adjuncting, sometimes for teaching 15 weeks, 3 hours a week for like $3,000.
I got a roommate who has to do that.
And so I'm fortunate that I have, a full-time academic position, that I'm tenured. Like I have tenure, I jumped through that hoop, so I have a certain job security. And I am fortunate, thirdly, because my position is at a university in Las Vegas. So,
Hard to be approved.
That matters. Like that really matters. Like, we have, a gaming institute at UNLV. We have a number of faculty that study the sex industry and the adult industry. I have a colleague that wrote a book on the history of, Nevada brothels, for example. So it's not unusual in the context of being at UNLV, being in Las Vegas, that I, study pornography or, what's known as the women's market for sex toys and porn. So I don't get any, kind of sideways glances at my home institution. And I'm at the point in my career where, I run with a lot of cool people, right? So a lot of my best friends are porn scholars or, study the sex industry and stuff. Those are the people that I pal around with the most. And we love each other and we love what we're doing and, think we're, doing kind of interesting work. And I think the other thing I want to say about that is, I'm talking in a context right now where it's early 2020. And that is a different moment in time than, back in 2000 when I was working on my PhD and my dissertation research, because I did get some funny looks.
So you were doing this the whole time, all of your career. You weren't kind of studying something a little different. And then when you had the security, you were like, okay, I can do.
No. Yeah. I mean, some people do opt to do that. Like they'll maybe in the early part of their career write about something quote unquote, quote, safe. And then wait until they have tenure and job security and then maybe, do something that could potentially ruffle some feathers or be more controversial. But I became interested. Well, I was always interested in questions of gender and then increasingly questions of sexuality as a grad student. And really started to do research on feminist sex toy stores and sex toy retailing when I was in graduate school.
Why the interest in that?
Yeah, I mean, I write about that in Vibrator Nation. In the introduction to the book, I talk a little bit about the genesis of the project, but I found these spaces to be really interesting. And when I was in graduate school, I took a research methods course on ethnographic fieldwork, right? Kind of if you think about anthropologists, they kind of go into cultures and communities and they talk to people and they try to see the world through their eyes and get a sense of, the organization of a community or culture. So I was taking this class. We had to do a project. A little ethnographic project, and a, women-friendly feminist sex toy shop called Intimacies had just opened in this small college town where I was living at the time, which was Northampton, Massachusetts. And I was like, this store is like Good Vibrations. I've been to Good Vibrations. This will be my project. And it was fascinating. And the first interview I ever did really became like the springboard for what turned into my dissertation, what turned into a number of years of additional research, and what became Vibrator Nation. Because I talked to the owner of this business, and, you know, she said some things that just as a young researcher piqued my curiosity. She said, you know, I based my store on the Good Vibrations model. And I was like, there's a model. There's like a retail model, right? Like, what is this model? I'm curious. And I asked her, well, what's the Good Vibrations retail model? And she said, well, you know, we lead with sex ed. We have a lot of resources. The store, we've created an environment, you know, for women, but anyone's welcome. And we have the products displayed out of the packaging. So people come in and they can have like this encounter.
You can kind of touch them. You can have a feel.
And that helps normalize it. It helps demystify it. It helps make it less scary.
Less giggling at a dildo.
So she kind of described parts of this model. And then she also said that Joni Blank, the founder of Good Vibrations, had actually made herself available to her as a kind of, you know, informal business consultant. And that Good Vibrations had actually supplied her with the vendor list for $50. Now, if anyone who's listening has ever kind of, you know, started a business, worked at a business, knows anything about business, businesses don't just kind of say, you know, here's my vendor lists, you know, here's where I, you know.
Here, like, competition.
Exactly.
Have some help. Right.
And that was one of the key things in kind of the history of these businesses, is that if you go back to the early days of Good Vibrations, and Good Vibrations started in 1977, and Good Vibrations was actually not the first kind of, you know, feminist vibrator business. That was actually Eve's Garden, which started in New York in 1974.
Wasn't that the one that didn't want to display? They didn't want to like be selling dildos. What didn't one of them not want like to sell phallic dildos at like in the beginning? Am I misremembering?
There was some kind of, you know, I don't want to say squeamishness, but there was a sense that, and that's a larger kind of conversation. I can't remember specifically about Eve's Garden, but there were stories with that, you know, Joni Blank didn't want to display dildos in the store because it was the era where it was all about vibrators. It was all about the clit, you know, and women were kind of, you know, like learning about their bodies, but they were learning that, you know, penetrative sex wasn't necessarily or ever in some cases gonna kind of result in orgasms, that, you know, kind of part of, you know, so there was this whole larger set of conversations that were happening. But what I wanted to say about going back to the non kind of, you know, here competition is one of the things that set Good Vibrations apart from a lot of businesses was its willingness to share information with other companies that wanted to do what Good Vibrations was doing. And that was spearheaded largely by its founder, Joni Blank, because Joni really was non-competitive. She, you know, really thought that, you know, the more businesses that are out there doing what Good Vibrations is doing, the better the world will be. Like, people will have access to information. They might improve their self-esteem. And if you have improved self-esteem, you know, it might improve your, you know, intimate relationships. And if, you know, you feel good, you move through the world with more confidence. And if you feel good, the world's a better place. You know, this ripple effect. So Joni was like, you know, we want stores like Good Vibrations to open up. And so if someone called her and said, I want to learn to do what you do, she'd say, come on down. Like, you know, come visit the store for 2 weeks. Well, you can shadow someone on the sales floor. You can see our books. You can see our vendor lists. And
so many business people right now are listening to this being like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And so basically, you know, again, I write about this in the book, is that, you know, there was a very brief window where Good Vibrations had a kind of informal internship program. And one of the women who founded Babeland in Seattle, was one of those, she and her co-founder were those people that had called Joni saying, hey, we want to we're thinking about doing this in Seattle. And she was like, can one of you come down here? So Claire Kavanaugh went and spent a couple weeks in Good Vibrations learning in San Francisco at Good Vibrations, learning everything she could about the business, and then took that back to Seattle and they founded Babeland. And similarly, Kim Ayers, who founded Grand Opening in Boston, did a similar kind of internship. So those are the only two people that did it, and they did that in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And then they went back to their respective cities and opened up businesses. Meanwhile, there were some people at Good Vibrations who questioned the wisdom of Joni doing that, because they were like, you are training our competition. And she's like,
but it's also pre-online. So like, it's not even really competition at the time.
That's the other thing too. And that's
like, you're going to go to Seattle. You're just not going to do this down the street, right?
That's a key part of this, right? Yeah. Like Joni was doing this at a moment in time where, there wasn't online retailing yet. And so the idea of competition was so different, because these businesses, and there was only a handful of them at the time in the early 90s, they were geographically bounded, right? There was Good Vibes in San Francisco. There was Grand Opening in Boston. So they were, they weren't thinking of themselves as competitors. They were thinking about themselves as just like bringing something, fulfilling a need in their communities.
They're kind of being revolutionaries in a way. They're kind of saying like, we're going to put something that's not out here, and it's just going to be in every city. So it's good if there's other ones in these cities that are all doing it in this ethical way. Because if you live in Seattle and you have your feminist sex toy shop there, and you're going down to San Francisco for like nice anniversary weekend, if there is another feminist-owned sex toy shop that kind of reminds you of the one back home, you might be more likely to go with that instead of some, buy this $50 shitty dildo store.
So what you started to see by the early 1990s with the opening of Babeland and the opening of Grand Opening is that you started to see, this kind of emergence of, informally, these kind of sister stores. It wasn't part of a franchise. They were independent businesses, but they shared this philosophy. They shared this model.
I don't say flippantly, like soul sister stores in a way, in the sense of like, our vibes are going to be very similar.
Yeah. So this kind of larger, like, sex positive model of retailing really started to spread to cities across the country, and, continues to spread to cities across the country. So the way that I kind of think about it, and what I was trying to map throughout Vibrator Nation in a way, is this larger network and this kind of, the model that they all share, even though obviously they've put their own spin on the model. And, a vibrator shop in 1977 is different than a vibrator shop in 1993, which is going to be different than a vibrator shop in 2020, right? Different ideas around sex and pleasure, different ideas around gender, different language, different kind of ideas around, feminism even. And so, these stores have their own personalities, but they share some kind of like a core mission, and for a lot of these businesses, it was really, they were being driven by a mission of, personal empowerment for customers and social change. They wanted to change, the larger culture around sex and create more spaces where people had access to accurate information about sex, and also, just kind of access to conversations, right? Like the ability to go into a store and ask a question about, G-spot stimulation and, be confident that the person on the other side, on the receiving end of your question, is knowledgeable and well-trained.
And not judging
maybe has a master's degree from Widener University in human sexuality. Like, actual kind of credentials. They're working at a sex shop and they're not only selling you, a vibrator, a dildo, or a butt plug, but they have this wealth of information that they are willing to share, and they're willing to do it with compassion, and they're willing to do it in a non-shameful way. And if you think about it, there are just not many spaces in our culture where those types of interactions happen. And these businesses have always prided themselves as being those kinds of spaces where, yes, you can come and you can get your product, but you can also have this whole interaction around your sexuality and around your sexual education that is, sadly, really, really rare in our society. So I have a whole chapter of the book where I talk about kind of, adult sex education and the job that these businesses do, kind of filling in the gaps for our abysmal school-based sex education in this country,
Yeah. A frequent soapbox of mine.
Yeah.
Now you seem like there was no squeeze, like your relationship with sexuality seemed healthy when you started studying this stuff back then. So the book's not going to be like, because I see several of these where it's like sort of vanilla, like academic, jumps into this world and discovers the adult stuff and then writes a book on how like, I went from vanilla to this. But you were like kind of always comfortable, knowledgeable on, like this was like a passionate topic for you, even if you weren't like in graduate school.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, I approached the topic as a researcher. Like I knew that, this was an area that we didn't know a lot. It was a history that we didn't know a lot. I had questions. I, wanted to get answers to those questions. I thought other people would be interested in, reading this history and reading the answers to those questions.
What previous research was there for you to even like work with
there wasn't
from then?
A lot. There was, a couple pieces that had been published in the late 1990s that had kind of looked specifically, at good vibrations. There was someone who had done their kind of master's degree in sociology, looking at the history of good vibes. And so there were like two, academic journal articles.
You go to the library. Can you give me everything you got on this? And she's like, here's 2 books.
Yeah. And they weren't even books.
Not even
they
books.
were
Like,
just
here's
articles.
some papers.
So, it is, you create your own archive, right? You do that, what we would call primary research.
Okay.
I did multiple interviews over the years with Good Vibrations founder Joni Blank and, with Carol Queen, with Susie Bright, with the founders of Babeland, with the founders of Smitten Kitten, with the founders of Sugar. An important part of my research when I was still in graduate school, when I was working on my dissertation was, I had the opportunity and I will be thankful, all of my life for this opportunity that, I was able to actually work on the sales floor at Babeland in New York.
As part of the research?
In their Rivington shop. And it was great because they trained me to be one of their staff sex educators. I went through the training and, I did the work that any retail worker who works for Babeland does. You stand on your feet for hours at a time. You talk to customers about products. You talk to customers about human sexuality. You describe, at that time it was, the video porn section, and then it became the DVD porn section. But you do that kind of retail work, you ring up sales. So I got a real inside look, I did ethnographic field work for 6 months at Babeland. It also meant that I was sitting in on staff meetings. I was sitting in marketing meetings. Like
you're really hearing like how it's getting
all of these things that like for a researcher, it was like I often joked at the time, like it was, if you think of the movie Willy Wonka and Charlie gets his golden ticket, for me as a graduate student, I wasn't a professor yet. I didn't have a reputation. I was like nobody. And they believed in my project and in my project proposal. And they, wanted to have this history recorded too. So, I did, pretty sustained ethnographic research at Babeland and some at other businesses too, but then just, dozens upon dozens upon dozens of interviews with store founders and staff and marketers and sex toy manufacturers and feminist pornographers and just, this massive archive of these people who are connected to this world. And then, doing things like, by the time I moved to Vegas, I was still, doing like a new round of research for Vibrator Nation, attending, trade shows like the, AVN Adult Entertainment Expo, because, there were things I could learn about how kind of people within the industry were talking about, by 2008 and 2009, what was considered a hot market, which was the women's market. Yeah. So for decades, the mainstream industry hadn't really paid that much attention to female consumers. The mainstream industry was much more kind of focused on, the world of porn and, reaching, men and, male, desires and, speaking to the male gaze. And so even though businesses like Good Vibrations existed, they were seen as these kind of quirky fringe businesses. These
quirky. These women want to come. Isn't that strange? So silly.
But by 2008, 9, and 10, there was a different kind of conversation happening, within the adult industry that was super duper interesting because I had been studying these businesses for years.
From the inside.
From the inside.
Did you find any reservations being in there? Like, because everyone knows you're there as an academic to a capacity, right?
Oh yeah, all the staff
and they know there's a book. So like, did you find ever they were like, okay, actually, like you're in a staff meeting, it's like, okay, actually, Lynn, we're gonna need you to step outside for this part because like we don't want to end up in the book.
You'd think, right? You'd think, and I was really fortunate. Like I mean, super fortunate. I mean, I got to see, accounting spreadsheets and numbers, and I sat in meetings at Babeland and heard about, some business woes and, just stuff that, I think I did my kind of early stage research for my dissertation, which, then became important for the book and, the additional research I did. But, I was able to get my foot in the door and cultivate, trust and research relationships with people in the industry before people got super duper protective and before, I
think of Almost Famous, the movie Almost Famous with the kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're like, they start trusting him too much and then he has to tear him apart.
No, I didn't have that experience. That would have been soul crushing. Boy, right? I love that movie and he really stuck with it though. He was like, I'm going to make you like me. I'm going to make you talk to me. Russell, when can we have that interview? Like, I never had to chase anybody. And this is the thing. I mean, I did 80 plus, extensive interviews, and dozens of informal interviews and sometimes multiple in-depth interviews with the same person during the course of researching and writing Vibrator Nation, which took, 15 years. Nobody ever turned me down for an interview. Mm-hmm. Nobody.
Why do you think that is?
I think part of it was that I think there's two things. I think particularly some of the old timers, I use that affectionately. I should let me backtrack there. Pioneers, some of the pioneers who started their businesses in the 70s, they really wanted their story told. They wanted it documented for posterity's sake. They knew that they had done something important. And so there was this sense that, let's get this on the record. Somebody is interested in writing about this. We want to,
finally
participate.
Someone's interested in writing about it.
And then, as the research deepened and grew, and as I was interviewing more and more people and, folks at Babeland and folks at this company and this company, word got out that I was working on this project. And then I think it became, well, we don't want to be left out. Of course we want to talk to Lynn Camella. If Lynn Camella wants to interview us for this book, yes, I want to share my expertise. I want to share my knowledge. People want to share what they know about an industry, but they also want their contributions documented, and I think that played a part in it. And then I think, again, just going back, I think sometimes people outside of academia and frankly, some people inside academia don't kind of realize how much time and energy goes into cultivating those relationships with the people that we, work with for our research. I've never parachuted into some place saying, hi, you don't know me, but,
now trust me and tell me all your secrets.
I always, I've been fortunate that I've been able to gain the trust of my research participants over the years. And cultivate those relationships and foster those relationships. So going back to your question, did anybody ever shoo me out of a meeting? No, the opposite. But I also think that I wouldn't have been able to do the same research if I started it in 2020 because businesses are far more competitive, because people who work for some of these adult businesses they're signing, non-disclosure agreements. They're signing non-compete agreements. People are a lot more kind of buttoned up and tight-lipped about, what now is considered trade secrets. And in the early 2000s, when I was doing this research and everybody was talking to me, they weren't talking about trade secrets.
They're all just excited that they're doing this awesome cool thing.
I was studying an industry where so many people got their starts because there was that one person, Joni Blank, who was willing to share all this stuff. So they had come, into this space based on the generosity of, others, and they were being generous with me. So I think there was very much amongst many people I interviewed and was part of my research, those people I think really had a kind of, pay it forward, we were helped and now we're helping this young researcher and then I became an older researcher and they were still happy to help me. Luckily.
No. Pioneer researcher.
Yeah, pioneer researcher.
The adult industry, however, does get burned a lot, whether it's from regular media appearances or academia or whatever.
Sure.
And when you talk about doing ethnographic research for something like this, I mean, it's great that you didn't have this buttoned up experience, running Vibrarian Nation, but what are some tips you would give that for people who want to enter these spaces, whether it's sex worker communities or sex toy stuff or the porn world, to be respectful while still obviously your mission is your work. Yeah. And then there's in trying to figure out a way to be respectful while doing it.
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's a really, that's a multi-layered question. I mean, we could enter that question through, a lot of different way. I mean, I'll throw out some keywords, be transparent, be transparent about who you are and what you're doing there. And I'll give an example of this. My first year at AVN in 2008, I was at a sweet party thrown by Babeland. And one of the owners had told me earlier in the day, there's this feminist scholar who's here studying the industry. I want you to meet her. And so this party came around and she dragged me over and said, I want you to meet this person. And I almost fell over when I saw the name on the tag because it was a very well-known anti-porn feminist.
Gail Dines.
And I was just surprised because it wasn't a person who I expected to see in this intimate space of this sweet party with these kind of progressive sex toy retailers. And, this person was, had a media pass, right? So they, were kind of positioned as a journalist. But
did the people there know that?
They were really doing research for the book that they would write that talks about the expo. And parts of that book got a lot of blowback because people said, I didn't know I was talking to a researcher. I thought I was talking to a journalist, or I didn't know this was on the record. I didn't know this was going to be part of a book. So that's an example of not being transparent and not being, ethical in the ways that, good researchers are trained to be ethical. So I think transparency is important. Obviously, ethics is important. Obviously, consent. Have you gotten the consent of, your the people that you're talking to? Have you gotten permission to be in that space if you're not a sex worker going into sex worker spaces? Or, if you're doing an interview, like how is that interview going to be used? Are you
gonna edit? Are you gonna chop it up and select what you're putting out there, or are we putting the full thing?
So I really appreciate it. For example, I this week at AVN was on a couple of their business panels. I moderated one, and I organized and was part of another on sex toys and sex tech. And I really appreciated, people I know who've become friends of mine, but they have a podcast. So we're friendly, and I've been on their podcast before. But, they, emailed and said, we'd really like to record that session, for a future podcast. Are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. Let me check with the other panelists to make sure they're okay. And everybody was okay. So that's an example, right? Of, podcasters asking permission, getting consent. I know them, so I know how, it's a quality podcast. Whereas, there was somebody who had their, iPhone on, a stand, whatever those are called, and recorded our whole panel. And then afterwards came up and said, I'm with the media. And with the media in this case meant that they have a website. Okay, I mean, it's not like they're with the media for the New York Times or the Washington Post, but whatever,
Loose usage of media.
And they said, well, I recorded your panel and I'm going to be uploading it. And I just went, whoa. And I said, you're going to upload our whole panel? And she said, well, unless you wouldn't, I can do snippets. And I said, I think segments would be better. I said, I wasn't aware that you were video recording this panel and video recording it for kind of...
Because that's not what the press... Brian and them in the press room, like, that's not something they're like... given the press passes for them to do. That's not the point
and so
of
that's an example. And again, I think sometimes these are like, rookie mistakes or honest mistakes. I don't, in that case, this isn't someone who's anti-sex or anti-porn or anything like that. They have, a website that I've read, like I know of the website, but, as a, person who's part of this panel, my panel's for this space. Like I'm talking about these things in the space of this seminar room. I expect journalists will be there writing about it for, their publication. But I did not sign up for an hour-long panel that I put together and that I moderated to be video recorded and then uploaded So again, these are things where this person doesn't have bad intentions. I want to underscore that. Like, they're coming from a good place. But to me, that's not the most ethical behavior. Like, it would have been much better at the start of our panel to come up to us and said, I would like to video record this so I can maybe upload, at most 5 minutes of it as a teaser on my website. Are you okay with that? Are you panelist number 2 okay with that? Are you panelist number 3? And so I think that that's a good example. I mean, that's like consent, right? We talk about that so much in kind of, sexual spaces, especially sex positive spaces. And, it just, I raised my eyebrows, and I think that this, person was like, oh, are you okay with that? And I'm like, I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know you were doing this. And, and so I think, transparency, ethics, consent, and allyship. I think that's really important too. If you're like a non-sex worker going into sex worker spaces, what does it mean to be a good ally? What does it mean to kind of, use your power and show your support to kind of, marginalized communities that you want to support, but you're not necessarily part of, right?
How do you feel about the thoughts of people from X, Y, or Z marginalized community? The point of view of like those people should be the ones writing the articles, doing that podcast, doing this thing. when there are plenty of researchers who do want to go in and research these things? Like, do you think is there one better or worse for research? Like, someone in the community, can they be objective?
Sure. I mean, that's a good question. Well, I'll give you like a few just examples. I do a lot of work with media. I get contacted fairly often for, a quote on any number of things. And if someone's writing about sex workers and sex worker experiences, I almost always say, here are several porn performers, sex workers. Like, these are the people you want to talk to. So I give those, journalists those names. I'm not a sex worker. I've never been a sex worker. I would never claim to kind of know that experience or have that expertise to speak to. So I'm always in the work that I do, like making sure, I can't speak to that, but here's some people who I think could.
So you will bow out if you feel like.
Oh my gosh, all the time.
But is it because you're not in the community, or because you actually aren't able to answer the particular question they had?
Well, I think those are related.
Well, like if someone asks you something where like you do know the answer, but you're maybe not in that world community, do you sometimes go, you know what, it'd be better if you get them, or do you just say like, I can answer it, but like you should also talk to others?
I do all of that. Okay. Yeah, I do. Depending on what the question, right? Because it could be anything. It could be, so I know where my area of expertise is.
You know your lane.
I know my lane, and I stay in my lane, and I think other people should stay in their lane. And that's not only about like, I can't speak to sex workers' experiences. Sex workers can, and those are the people you need to talk to. That's also true of like just, people who will be like, do you want to comment on, X, Y, and Z phenomena? And I'm like, that's not what I study. Yeah. It's just like that, so I'm like, if I know of someone who I think might be good, I'll pass along a name and an email, or I'll just say, it's not my area of study, and I'm sorry, I don't have anyone I can recommend for you, to do. And then the other thing I think is really important for, those of us that study the adult industry is to make sure, as much as we can, that, members of the communities that we're studying are at the table with us, right. That, they're kind of with us on panels, that they are, their voices are in, books that we put together, that we, that they're, that
they're included in the storytelling finally type of thing.
Or just that, I think it's, in this day and age, I'm skeptical of, say, a collection of academic work on the porn industry, for example, that has no pieces written by people in the industry. Right. Like, that's, to me, it's like, no, because, these are smart, savvy business people who also know how to write. They can write about their experiences and want to, reach out to them. And if you can, pay them, But so those are, I think those are just really important things to keep in mind. And
you're what's the new views on pornography? What do you call that, anthology? I'm a fake smart person.
Yeah,
so like
it's New Views on Pornography, Sexuality, Politics, and the Law, and it's like an edited collection. Right. That's what we would call it.
Does the collection have span a lot of different points of view? Like, are there negative points of view in there to show like a wide spectrum, or is it kind of all a lot of pro porn rah-rah? Well,
I wouldn't say it's, pro porn. I think that's too simplistic, but
silly man.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that I don't mean that. I'm sorry if that came out insulting. I didn't mean that. I was just thinking, but where my brain went to right away when you said pro porn is like how kind of, a really rich, kind of complex industry in the minds of many people gets kind of split down the middle into like, you're pro porn or you're anti porn, right? Like those. Right. So that I always kind of like, flinch at the like pro porn, but, it's good research is what it is. But we don't, many of the writers engage with the like anti-porn perspective because it's been so influential. Like you have to kind of discuss it to show the ways in which it informed your thinking, even if you're simultaneously problematizing and or rejecting it, right? Okay. So those perspectives are in there, but they're not from anti-porn people. They're from historians saying, let's talk about the feminist sex wars of the 1970s and the 1980s, and let's talk about the anti-porn kind of organizations that were founded. So, I mean, you get some of that in there, but it's not written by kind of anti-porn people. It's more...
By the way, you have been phenomenal this whole time, not name dropping people you didn't like or things or whatever. I'm just like, oh, she's gonna spill some tea on. No, she's not gonna say who. Okay, I was like, it's very it's very fun.
No,
you keep me in suspense.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not about that. I'm not. I mean,
That's a lot of grace to do, especially like when you've read some of the shitty things some people have written on an industry that you are an expert in. I feel like, behind closed doors when the mics are off, you could be like, let me tell you about it, right?
I probably won't even do that, actually. I mean, I just think that, I feel why do I just don't need to do that. I think that
I just think about like what's going on in your mind when you're in that room at AVN being introduced to unnamed anti-porn feminist.
Well, I think I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I mean, I'm a super expressive person. I talk with my hands. I'm Italian. I talk with my eyes. I move my shoulders and my head a lot. I mean, I do not have a poker face, and so I think my, reaction in that moment was probably, apparent to the small group I was with, that I was just kind of, and I think I even said like, oh, you're so-and-so. Like, I think I even said that, like, and in my mind I was like, what are you doing here? Not who I, thought I was.
Who invited this one?
No. But, So, going back to research, there's, I think increasingly more and more work is being done, on the adult industry, that people are taking it seriously as a serious industry. They recognize that, there are workers who are laboring under, challenging conditions, that, porn performers are increasingly part of the larger gig economy, and we can learn a lot about the gig economy by studying porn performers. And there's more academic spaces that are kind of, I think, responding to this increased interest. Like I, co-chair the adult film history group of the Society for Cinema and Media Studies. Okay. So within this kind of film and media studies academic organization, there's actually a scholarly interest group for adult film historians, or basically porn studies scholars, and that's only, been around since about, like the last 5 years. Wow. And in 2014, the first academic journal devoted to pornography was founded. It's called Porn Studies. So even in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, there's been more what we might call institutionalization for the research. There's a designated journal. There's this adult film history interest group. And those things are good because they allow people like me to find other people like me, right? So there's more and more research that's being done. And a lot of it is really fantastic, being done, really rigorously and ethically, where people are really kind of, doing kind of empirical studies, like doing interviews, doing surveys, spending a lot of time in archives, looking at what the historical record has to say. And then there's research on the adult industry that, I'm not sure I would really call research. It's more like, we don't like porn, and, we've talked to a couple people who also don't like porn, and we're going to call this research, So I think, there's more and more stuff out there, and I really encourage people to, do their best to sort through it and figure out, how good is it? How reliable is it? How representative is it? Who have they talked to? Where is this piece of research published? Is it a peer review academic journal where, you've actually had experts in a field read it to make sure it's quality research?
You're asking so much of an American to do that much checking. Sadly.
Maybe I'm asking this. Yeah, maybe I'm asking this more of my students. This is something I would say in the classroom. Like,
you're actually talking to Claire right now. Claire from the second row. Listen up.
Yeah, you have a good point. I got off on a tangent.
No,
I did. I got off on a tangent.
I wish people would do that. I wish people would fucking read.
Yeah.
And read more than a headline.
Well, I guess, it's when I think about research literacy, there's a lot of overlap between general media literacy
which
and
needs
research,
to get taught in high schools now.
Literacy.
That's where we need to be at.
A lot of media literacy, it mirrors research literacy, right? Like, who wrote this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this factual? If so,
what
evidence are they drawing on? Like, what evidence do they have to support the claim they're making about this, political situation or whatever? So a lot of questions we would, work with folks around like basic media literacy is somewhat similar to kind of how we would instruct people to kind of evaluate research. Like it's not that hard. Like just because something has the label research doesn't mean that it's like you can't read it, it's just a category, right? Just like, fiction and nonfiction, research is kind of a category of organizing knowledge. And often, that's found in particular places like academic research journals or books. But, even good investigative journalism is based on research.
Right.
So again, like people read research all the time. It's just called investigative journalism.
Yeah. They don't really, we tricked them into it. Before we go, so what would you say if there was one thing that we need to do more research on in the broad umbrella of the adult world?
Oh gosh.
What do you think we really need to get to studying or researching more of?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's a big question. I think some of the research that's happening around labor is the most exciting to me. I think, Heather Berg's work on labor in the porn industry is really cutting edge and exciting. There is an Australian doctoral student who is doing research on the transgender porn industry in LA and Las Vegas. So I think some of that research that really is looking at how kind of performers navigate their work lives, and really getting into like the nitty gritty of that. That's work that's, I think, really exciting. And so there's some of that, that's coming out in dissertations, that's forthcoming in books. And, so I think more of that is really needed. So that's what comes to mind.
Fantastic. Well, Lynn, you've been fascinating to listen to.
Well, thank you.
You lived up to what I was told was, she will talk. It's a good thing, positive thing, because everything you say is wonderful and brilliant. It's like, why am I even here? It's like,
you don't get a lot of one-word answers with me.
Which is great, but it's more like I should ask questions and do that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, not at all.
Although I'm curious who said I talked a lot, but you don't have to reveal.
She said it in a totally positive way. She said it as a podcaster to podcaster, be like, she's a great guest because you don't have to drag anything out of her. Yeah, so
awesome.
You're fantastic.
Cool.
It's also the same person who recorded your session.
Got it.
They're great. But Lynn, where can people find you and obviously buy your books?
Oh, sure. So I have a website, which is lynnkamela.com, and that's kind of my personal website that has,
LYNNCO.
LYNNCOMELLA, lynnkamela.com. Yeah. And then, so my book that we've mentioned a few times, Vibrator Nation, How Feminist Sex Toy Stores Change the Business of Pleasure. You can find it a lot of places. You can find it at feminist sex toy stores like Good Vibrations. You can find it at your, hopefully, local indie bookstore, which I encourage people to support.
If you're in New York City, Blue Stockings, Lower East Side.
Yeah, for sure. I hope they're carrying it. And you can also get it at some of the bigger retailers. I mean, I got, weirdly enough, a Google alert about a month ago that like Target Online is now carrying Vibrator Nation. I'm like, okay, go Target. Yeah. All right. I can roll with that. So you can find it out there. And then, the other book, New Views on Pornography, Sexuality, Politics, and the Law, that could be a little bit harder to track down. I wouldn't expect that one to kind of be, at like your local indie bookstore, but they could probably order it for you, or you could find it online. Yeah.
And you're also a fun Twitter follow. If I almost may plug your Twitter, so which is
it's at Lynn Camella. Yeah. So just like at my first name and then my last name. And I guess it depends on what you think of as fun. But these days I kind of, for better or for worse, do less kind of posting about kind of sex and sexuality and a lot more political raging. It's a healthy outlet for me. So be forewarned. It might not be everybody's cup of tea.
100% my cup of tea. Because I had MSNBC on until you got here. Lynn, thanks so much for chatting with me.
Sure.
And why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Okay. Well, thanks for listening. And bye.
Again, go follow Lynn over on the social medias. Check out her website. Buy the book, Vibrator Nation. Do you want to buy me the book? It's on my Amazon wish list. Did you know I had an Amazon wish list? It's like a sort of well-kept secret of the show. I've had it for years, and I really enjoy it when like random books show up at my apartment. If you want to scroll through and maybe pick me up a copy of Vibrator Nation, maybe pick me up some Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, you can go to manwhorepod.com/thank-you. I'll put a link in the show notes. I would love to know what you thought about this week's episode. I love hearing what you thought about any of the episodes. Send your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your nudie pictures, all over to manwhorepod@gmail.com. Looking to join a sex-positive community of like-minded people? Consider hooking up with us in the Champagne Room, the Peep Show, or at the monthly Man Whore Munch on Zoom. You can gain access to all of these exclusive communities at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Not only do you get access to all these wonderful people, not only do you get bonus content, but it's a great way to support the podcast. It's a great way to show your appreciation for what it is that I do. And if Patreon's not really your thing, you're not into the whole like monthly subscription thing, maybe you just like to randomly throw money at me. Just want to throw it in my virtual face. My Venmo and Cash App handles are in the show notes of this episode. Next week on the pod, I have got on storyteller and porn star Jessie Dubai, sharing a pretty wild story about, well, an arrest that shouldn't have been an arrest and a legal ordeal that will keep you on your toes, your toesies. Be smart, everybody, and stay slutty at home.